That board of peace, it's not a stab in the back, it's a punch in the face. I'm shocked that there are other countries sitting in that board.
Is the genocide in Gaza over?
Israel is getting rid of the Palestinians in the most sadistic way this century could afford.
It's not about what you said, it's about they want to get rid of you regardless.
Every time there is a violent smear campaign against me, we are near a reporting deadline.
You've been sanctioned. What is it like? How difficult does it make your life?
I cannot have a bank account. I cannot receive money. There is a direct link between the apparent collapse of the multilateral system and the Epstein files. It looks like the orgy of power.
Thank you. There's hundreds of you already watching this. It's an important conversation, Francesca, not just about what's happening in Gaza and the occupied Palestinian territories, where there is a genocide ongoing. We're speaking on the day that Donald Trump in DC is unveiling his board of peace, which includes people like Benjamin Netanyahu on the board of peace, which makes no sense to me. But we're also talking to you because you have been at the center of a lot of controversy recently because, and I'm going to read this out, a clip went viral of you saying, instead of stopping Israel, most of the world is armed, given it political excuses, political sheltering, economic and financial support. We now see that we as a humanity have a common enemy. That wasn't the full clip, was it?
Yeah, it's been quite interesting to see what has unfolded, because it's not that this is what I said that made headlines. It's what I was told to have said, which is not the first time. I mean, it's not surprising. Then I will tell you and the viewers what I think. But what I said is that, so in the context of an Al Jazeera forum, speaking mainly to media, in a jurists panel, a panel of legal experts, I was saying we have been looking at the stabbing at the heart of international law for 2 years. Because the genocide is a crime that is to be prevented. It's to be stopped. It's to be punished. It's not to be. It's not to trigger indifference, which is what it has provoked among most of the international actors. And I said Israel has committed heinous crimes, but it would have not been able to do that without the system that has enabled, financed it, given it political shelter, and basically let it go with the slaughter of Palestinians, with the starving, with the destruction of life and whatever it's necessary as conditions for life. And it didn't go that well. It's been chopped, it's been doctored, but what has made it, I think, the world, the global story, the global headlines that it is two things. First is that the blunder was served to the Minister of Foreign Affairs of France,
yes,
who parroted, who repeated it without checking. Yes. And the second is that the absurdity is so enormous. And still, instead of pedaling back, the French diplomacy continued to insist, saying, okay, she didn't say that, but she needs to resign anyway because she has said other outrageous things.
Which is almost really proves the point that it's not about what you said. It's about they want to get rid of you regardless, and they'll use whatever they can, even doctored clips. I'll come back to the French in a moment, but it was Hillel Neuer, who is the rather notorious executive director of UN Watch, which is a pro-Israel NGO. He was one of the first people, if not the first, to share the doctored video of you on February the 8th. Just for people watching, Francesca's, you can go online and watch the whole video. We won't play it here. But she talks for a while in between the two statements. They cut out at least 2 sentences and then clipped it together to make it sound like you were saying Israel is the common enemy of humanity, rather than, as you say, you were talking about the system, the attacks on international law, the finance. He delivered that clip. Not only did he get away with sharing a doctored clip, this guy, the other day he shared another doctored clip of you in which they edited a speech of yours to make you sound like a supporter of Hamas. We're living in a very dangerous age, are we not, where people are able to smear one another, not just forget AI, just with old-fashioned editing.
Mehdi, yes and no. In the sense, we are not talking of artificial intelligence here. Look, I would like people to notice two things. First of all, the cut and paste of that video was so rudimental, that it was almost insulting
Yes.
to human intelligence. Let artificial intelligence aside. But the thing is that I believe that they did it knowing that they would not face consequences, as usual, because this is probably the 12th time that they launch a smear campaign that has a huge impact on, let's say, my credibility. And what is interesting that this time there has been an incredible pushback from the United Nations, diplomats, civil servants, intellectuals, artists, students, and this is who we are. We are a movement, and we are acting and reacting more and more organically. This is why I tell, hey, folks, don't despair. You do not undo a system that has profound roots, historical, political, and it has been ongoing for centuries, and in Palestine for 100 years. You don't dismantle it overnight. It requires awareness, coordination, and resilience.
So you've been under attack for a long time, people calling for your resignation, smearing you. The French foreign minister, as you mentioned, was the first to come out and call for your resignation. He said you should be fired at the next Human Rights Council meeting on February 23rd. The French haven't backed down, as you say. What is your response to the French government?
I wish you had a bit of this, exercised a bit of this scrutiny on those who are accused of war crimes, crimes against humanity before the International Criminal Court, instead of allowing them to fly over the airspace, through the airspace of your country. And I wish you had done something as convinced as the attack against me over fabricated statements to stop the crimes in Gaza and the rest of the occupied Palestinian territory. The best of it is that they use the recognition of the state of Palestine as the quintessential proof that they have done so much for Palestine.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the audacity. Yes. 35 years later, they recognize the state of Palestine.
I do want to ask about the UN. You mentioned the UN, Francesca. Stefan Dujarric, who I'm sure you know, spokesman for the Secretary General, he was asked during a briefing recently about the French minister's call for your resignation. In his response, he made clear, quote, how completely separate from the Secretary General you are. He said, they don't agree with much of what she says, referring to you, and that the issue needs to be addressed by member states themselves. He didn't say anything about the video being doctored. He didn't say anything about all of the malicious smears against you. And he didn't say anything about UN Watch, this pro-Israel group, abusing its UN accreditation to attack you. What do you make of the UN Secretary General distancing himself from you?
It's his approach. I don't even think it deserves comments. I mean, I remember that Kofi Annan, a previous Secretary General of the United Nations, kept special procedures very close to his heart. In the sense, yes, of course we are independent, which is the reason why I can be also so outspoken. Yeah. And it's my independence, like that of Michael Fakhri or other special rapporteurs, yeah, who are Richard Bennett, who are all so vocal. But Kofi Annan used to say that special procedures are the eyes and ears, the crown jewels of the international system, of the UN system. And what shall I say? Thank you, spokesperson.
They don't like your
General. You made your point.
They don't like your independence for sure. Before I go to our audience,
I live with it. Frankly, it's fine.
Before I go to the audience, Donald Trump said today at his Board of Peace meeting, the war is over in Gaza, even though something like 600 people, conservative estimate, have been killed in Gaza since the quote-unquote ceasefire. Is the genocide in Gaza over, Francesca?
But clearly not. But I don't think that President Trump or anyone in his circle cares. And anything for what's going on in Gaza. There is an Italian parliamentarian who said something that I find very fitting. He said, looking at what's going on in Gaza, it seems that the Western countries, and apologies because I know it's not very appropriate, it's still colonial language, but let's say the global minority has moved from immobilism to immobiliarism. And there is a colonial fare around it, which is really mind-blowing. That board of peace is it's not a stab in the back, it's a punch in the face of the UN system, because it's not only trying to obliterate international law, the law of self-determination, the ICJ advisory opinion, anything that has been written under the auspices of the United Nations in the past 80 years and the Geneva Conventions, etc. I think it's also creating an alternative. So it's displacing and replacing. It's creating something else. This board of peace, it's an imperial version of the post-Security Council era. And I'm not surprised that this US administration comes up with such a proposal. I'm shocked that there are other countries sitting in that board, including the head of the World Bank. Because international organizations don't need to be human rights organizations, but still, international law is binding in terms of principles and values on everyone, including international organizations. And it's really incredible what's going on. And this is just a lot of work for us.
They're all there just to suck up to Donald Trump. I'm not sure if you saw the ruler of Kazakhstan saying, we need to give him a special peace prize. They all know how to play Donald Trump. Paul Kyo in our comments in the Q&A, one of our subscribers says, he's grateful to you, Francesca. He says, how do average global citizens support your efforts to end the genocide in Gaza?
Look, I wouldn't be who I am without the absolute love and energy that pours from everywhere. Just to tell you, I've been in Rome, and it's not because it's Italy, but I've been in Rome like 5-6 times over the past year. Most of the time I can't even pay a taxi driver because people say, oh, it's you. We are so sorry for what's going on. And I've received this week a dinner. Someone sent me Mexican food, knowing that I'm vegetarian. It was all vegetarian, saying, we want to support you. Just tell us what we can do. And someone paid to have Mexican food delivered at my home. I don't know, these are small things, but wherever I go, there are thousands of people coming to listen to probably quite boring lectures. And I'm joking, they're not boring at all, but still, they're depressing. We talk about genocide, we talk about the killing and maiming and orphaning of children. There are over 1 million people in Gaza who have remained homeless, who have been made homeless. I don't know, it's very scarring. And still there are people coming because we are coming together as one. And there are a few people who had the privilege to talk about what's going on, to denounce the system. And I'm one of those. But again, I thank Palestine for giving me the opportunity to become a better person.
Francesca, Brian Florian asks, he says, you're loved in Southern California, he says. How can we get an accurate death toll from Gaza? The numbers vary anywhere from 71,000 to 680,000. Makes it hard to have an honest conversation about it.
It's very hard. I don't think there is a possibility to really determine, other than through the conservative figures that the Ministry of Health in Gaza is distributing, it's sharing. We have between 75,000 and 80,000 people who have been killed by strike, so bombs or violent death. This account doesn't include those who have died because of starvation, because of medical neglect, because of lack of medicines, because of chronic illnesses that cannot be cured, including skin diseases. Now there is also meningitis starting to spread, and this is going to be an epidemic if it's not contained. There is lack of vaccines, and now just today I was reading, and this is going to be very painful for mothers, especially nursing mothers who might be listening to us. Israel is allowing baby formula to enter, but every truck or every convoys contain a different formula brand, which means that the kids, the babies, have to be moved from one formula to another, getting sick, because nursing mothers who cannot nurse are already in strong pain. And when you see your child suffering because it cannot be nourished, this is one. But also now Israel only allows Israeli goods in. These are the last information. And Palestinians are very suspicious because this would not be the first time that they find either pills in the food or other contaminants. Look, I mean, Israel is getting rid of the Palestinians in the most sadistic way this century could afford. And it's shocking that no one stops it. We're just talking of this kind of brutal killing, but what about those who have disappeared? There are probably 11,000 people under the rubble. 11,000. And then there are about 10,000 people in jail and 4,000 people unaccounted for. And it's shocking. It's really shocking.
It is. Roshan Gadamian asks Francesca, did you walk into this knowing that you'd get smeared with no recourse? Because the cost to you has been tremendous to you and your family. What makes it worth the cost to you? He also points out, you've been sanctioned since last summer. It makes you almost an unperson on the international scene.
I cannot answer with the mind I had 3 years ago, because I think, knowing myself, that had I known what I was putting myself into, I wouldn't have done it. I mean, I'm not that courageous. I'm not. I wish I was courageous. I'm not. I'm just someone who has a strong integrity, and that is tested at every step. And I don't pedal back because I always do the right thing. But this is a choice made in the moment. 3 years ago, I was definitely not prepared for this. Yes, I would know. I could expect the smears because I've seen how they tormented, like the pro-genocide minions in Geneva and others, how they tormented Richard Falk, Michael Link, even John Dugard. I mean, 3 authorities in international law who held this mandate. So I was expecting some fierce attacks, but not like this. And especially this is something I was not expecting. The cowardice and the complicity member states could get involved in. This has been a complete shock to me. Germany, Italy, France, Ireland, but even Ireland, I mean, it's not as solid government-wise as we would have expected. We have had Spain and Slovenia, like holding the fort to an extent, but the rest of Europe has been pathetic at the government level, at the EU institution level, but not the people, not the people. The people of Europe are really preparing the ground for what I call the post-genocide multilateralism that we need to build, a decolonized multilateralism without these privileges and without these unfettered and unchecked ultra-capitalist forces governing politics.
Decolonized multilateralism is a good phrase and one we should use. Let me ask you this before I bring in another question for the audience. What is it like being sanctioned by the US on the international scene? A lot of international criminal court prosecutors and judges have also been sanctioned. You've been sanctioned. What is it like? How difficult does it make your life?
It's brutal. Look, I don't think that people can understand. And also, I'm lucky because I have my family who has come under attack because of the same reasons. I mean, trying to silence me in every possible way. But basically, as of July last year, I've not been able to access any of my resources. I cannot have a bank account. I cannot receive money. I cannot make any financial transaction. And, you know, if I were someone just needing a bank account to buy online, it would be bad, but I travel all the time. I used to rent cars, and I cannot. I used the credit card. I would not even have cash. Now I have to go around with a bunch of notes, and it's pretty inconvenient. But also, I need to have someone taking care of me because I cannot access my resources. Imagine I was alone, without a family, without. And of course, there are friends saying, "Can we help you?" But it's also a matter of pride. I mean, why do I have to be financially censored?
You've committed no crimes. You've committed no crimes. And
this is the thing: the sanctions. Sorry to interrupt, Mehdi, but it's a judgment without appeal that skips the trial. Because had there been a trial, had there been a process, I would have had the opportunity to defend myself. And it's not just the US, it's the entire system, because banking-wise, we are wired to the US.
Which is another reason why people probably should get de-wired from the US if this is how the US uses its financial clout. Don Wagner says, thank you for your consistency, courage, modeling resistance for Palestine. Please comment on how Israel and Trump have attempted to replace the United Nations with UN Security Council Resolution 2803, and how can this be reversed by another UN Security Council resolution or the General Assembly? Will the Board of Peace fail?
No, first of all, I want to share something that was said by a friend of mine here in Tunisia. He said, yes, about the UN Security Council resolution that I immediately analyzed and criticized. I said, it pains me because the UN Security Council is the most important decision-making power in our world, but at the same time, it crossed the line. It's wrong. Palestinians have the right to self-determination, and no one else should decide for them. And they shouldn't be guarded. They shouldn't be observed, monitored. They should be helped heal the wounds of the genocide. The reconstruction starts from taking care of the victims and from accountability. Gaza is a crime scene, and so investigators have to come in before the bulldozers, you know. And this is one. But the second thing is the Board of Peace. Will it succeed? It depends. It really depends on us. I feel that there is, as I was saying, a human rights movement that has globalized. It has been building over the time, because you will remember 30 years ago, there was the altermondialist movement that was crushed. But we have a different kind of movement where the youngest generation is also playing a very important, though not always acknowledged, role. But this movement is probably dreaming less, but it's more pragmatic. And the BDS, for example, look at the BDS, is finding fertile ground everywhere. It's the ABC of a grammar of ethical citizenship, and it works everywhere. It starts with Palestine, but it works for us. It works for the Black Lives Matters movement. It works for the indigenous people in Canada, in Australia. It works for people in Africa. So it's really about holding the system accountable. And the financial system is above accountability. We cannot afford this anymore. So Palestine has awakened us. Palestine has shown us the interconnectedness of the struggles and is moving us to mobilization. We need to know what we are moving toward. And this is why I say, I do see us as part of this movement asking for respect of human rights are stipulated in human rights treaties, freedom and social and economic justice as universal values.
Yes.
And lastly, as I said, decolonized multilateralism, enriched not just by the Western values, but also the Sumud, Palestinian Sumud, steadfastness, the Ubuntu from South Africa and neighboring countries. This is what we need. A world for all and not for a few.
Well said. Let's take some more questions before we run out of time. Martin Archer was asking about BDS, but I think you've already answered that, so we're going to dismiss that one. And then we've got a couple of linked questions from Ala Al-Samurai says, what do you make of the UN Security Council over the last 2 years?
It's been very effective at allowing the genocide to continue, at avoiding taking measures in line with the UN Charter, which talks about the preservation of peace and security. I mean, Israel has been bombing Arab countries one after another. And I don't think the UN Security Council has intervened effectively to stop it. Yes, it has intervened, but maintaining the status quo to the point that it passed a resolution that would allow those who had committed genocide or being accomplices or weapon providers, financial providers, political shields to dictate the fate of the people in Gaza.
Yes. Josephine Nguyen asks the related question. First, she says, you should get a Nobel Peace Prize, she says. And then she asks, do you think there is a way to make the UN and the ICC, the International Criminal Court, more effective and morally clear in the short term? Or will it take decades to reform these institutions?
Again, it depends. I think that we in the global minority, otherwise called the global north, are not necessarily ready to endure, especially people from Caucasian background, if you see what I mean. It takes a lot of effort to change a system. We are lucky because now we see the enemy. There is a direct link between the apparent collapse of the multilateral system and its values and the Epstein files. There is a direct link. It's a system of complicity. It looks like, and pardon this expression, which is very strong, but it looks like the orgy of power. This is not our power. This is the power, this is a testosteronic power of multinationals, of lobbyists, and of perpetual war, perpetual conflict.
Yeah.
And those of us, as I was saying in Doha, who do not control heavy capitals, financial capitals, or weapons or algorithms, have all the interest in sticking to one another, forming a real organic group that can act in the name of humanity and solidarity, and fights everywhere we can peacefully and using legal tools as much as possible to change the system. This is the beauty of being in a democracy, that you can change those in power. This is what I'm telling people in Europe.
Yes.
Where half of the population in certain countries like mine doesn't vote. You go to vote. And those who will represent you need to feel accountable, but they will not if there is just indifference around.
On that note, and we're running out of time, Sophia Ansari says, Francesca, you're my hero. If international rulings are ignored without consequence, what does that mean for the future credibility of international law?
I think that if the system really fails, our concerns will be much worse than speculating about what remains of international law. I think that we will miss international law and human rights, especially freedom of expression and freedom of association, very much when we will not have them anymore.
Yes.
And this is why we need to stand together. There are so many in the US who are coming together. And this is why I feel bad at talking say, oh, the US is doing that. It's not the US, it's the US administration. And just take others with you. Together, we are more. Together, we take this world order over in no time. But we need to be able to share with humility whatever we do next.
Patricia B has a good provocative question. How do you interpret the demand that Hamas and Hezbollah disarm, other than a strategy for Israel to genocide more and steal neighboring land that much more easily?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think we can agree on the fact that the methods used by Hamas and Hezbollah have targeted civilians, and Israel has targeted civilians. This is wrong on both sides. But there is something, we cannot really compare Israel and Hamas and Hezbollah, because especially Israel is a state which violates international law through and through and has generated so many distortions, including the political reality that is today Hamas. But frankly, I don't think that we should start the discussion from Hamas. Because in any case, the Palestinians have the right to be free from Israeli oppression, apartheid, and to have justice, accountability, and for the refugees to return. Am I the only one who can imagine Israel post-apartheid? Well, it seems that most of the pro-Israel supporters are so jealous of the apartheid. No, they can be a decolonized Israel. Look at New Zealand. There are people who call it Aotearoa, people with indigenous name, people who call it New Zealand. It can be the same. Palestine, Israel, but it is to be a state where everyone has rights, not privileges.
Clearly you're of the view that a two-state solution is fanciful. It's one state with everyone living side by side as equals.
I mean, it's not that I don't think that it's not viable, because Israel has eaten it up.
Yes.
It's going to be very violent to dismantle everything that Israel has created in the occupied Palestinian territory. And frankly, among the settlers, there are normal human beings. They are not all the violent gangs that goes around. So I think that there are many who would leave.
A lot of them are there for financial incentives. They get subsidies to go live in houses in the West Bank.
And again, they might be racist against the Palestinians, huh? They might be racist. So there is a need to really re-educate people to love, not to be scared of the other. The Palestinians have been dehumanized to a point that is beyond what is.
Francesca, we're still hearing genocidal rhetoric on Israeli TV every day. You see pundits still talking about killing everyone in Gaza. Mohammed Tanbir says, what would you say is the best way to either hold tech corporations, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, who are profiteering from the Gaza genocide accountable, or changing them to be more ethical? I am of the opinion that some companies are too big to boycott, he says.
No, I don't think so. I think that it starts with coordinated action. I mean, look, I live the hypocrisy, because I've told, for example, I published a book in Italy which has been translated in 18 languages. It's, by the way, let me do a little bit of advertisement. It's coming out in English as well, and it's been published by a US publisher. It will come out, I think, in April or May, when the world sleeps. And I don't think that it should be on Amazon. It's a full contradiction. And let's buy in a bookstore or online from the publisher. But the thing is that, so yes, it is to be boycotted. But of course, there are people for whom certain services are necessarily, like elderly people and others. But also, let's look at the conditions, the working conditions of the workers inside Amazon. These people are our allies. And if we want to dismantle the system, their rights have to be our concern, and build networks of solidarity where we take care of each other, including Amazon workers. But by the way, I think that they need to be held accountable. And so they need to be brought to trial.
So one of your previous reports was about the profiteering of the genocide. That pissed off a lot of people. That's probably got even more targets on your back. Sam Bahor, let's give him the last word. He says, I'm writing from Palestine. You both have our utmost respect. Thank you, Sam. What's Francesca's next report topic and the timing of the release of her next report?
Look, mark my words. Every time there is a violent smear campaign against me, we are near a reporting deadline. Every time I need to present a report, the Geneva minions start attacking me, spreading misinformation. It always happens. So yes, we are just about that. I shared my report with the Israeli authorities just a few days before this all French affair started, exploded. So my next report is going to be presented to the Human Rights Council on the 23rd of March this year, and it's going to be about torture. And it's very heavy. There are 300 testimonies that the report is based on, some collected by me, others collected by lawyers and NGOs. It's a painful read, but necessary. And it goes beyond what I've worked on before, meaning the genocide, but also what the Palestinian and Israeli human rights organizations have documented, like networks of torture that remind hell.
Yes. We at Zeteo have tried to cover that story through Diana Butu's writings and other human rights groups. We've tried to cast a light on the torture that doesn't get covered in US mainstream media or British mainstream media. Israel does torture Palestinians, including children, in the occupied West Bank and Gaza. We look forward very much to what will be a depressing but very, very important report from you in March. Thanks for giving us a heads up. We are wrapping up, but we have a lot of guests on Zeteo Town Halls, but half the comments, I mean, we took a dozen questions. Sorry, we couldn't take more. There's 250 of you in the chat. It's one of our big live audience. But half the comments in the chat, Francesca, are not questions. They're just people saying, we love you. Luma Amir says, you are an inspiration. Tom Schwogler says, Francesca, you are a global treasure. Sophia Ansari says, many of us feel your moral urgency. Ola Nasser says, we admire you. Farida Shatanawi says, Francesca, you are a true force of nature. I'm in awe of your perseverance. So, Francesca, fuck those US sanctions. The people love you, clearly. The people have spoken. Thank you for taking time out for another Zeteo Town Hall. We hope to speak to you again. We will be covering your report in March. And for those of you watching at home, support independent journalism so that Zeteo can platform voices like the UN Special Rapporteur when she's being smeared on a global scale. Tell your friends, tell your family, become a paid subscriber to Zeteo. For now, from me, goodbye, and thank you, Francesca.
Thank you, Mehdi. Thank you, everyone.